Hey everyone, Kevin P. McAuliffe here for lowpost.com, and I'm back again with the next lesson in our Scratch Dailies tutorial series. And in this lesson, we're talking about audio sync. Audio sync, probably one of the most important steps in the Dailies workflow, and one that can seem a little bit daunting inside of Scratch, but once you see the audio tools at your disposal, you're going to see that this workflow is actually quite simple, whether it's automated by Scratch or whether you have to get in and do the job manually. Alright, and as you can see, we are in the construct window of Scratch, and we of course do need some clips to work with. So let's just navigate to our Scratch Dailies folder, to the video folder. I'm going to select these 4 video clips. We're going to say open. Of course, Scratch will remind us that the timeline that we have set up does not match the resolution of the clips, which is fine. We will swap it out to match. I'm just going to take those clips, drop them into their slots. And let's now hop into our media browser. Couple things that I want to point out in here. I'm actually just going to head to the audio tab, which is where we are going to be working. Now, if you take a look, you're going to notice that there are a few parameters that are missing. Things like scene, things like take, roll, but don't worry. I'm going to circle back to that in just a second. One thing that you're also going to notice is missing is the file name. However, we do have some values for audio timecode here that does match the timecode of the clip. So let's just come out of the media browser here. I'm going to come to the edit module. And what I want to do here is just stretch the window out just a little bit. We're just going to reframe everything so we can see it nice and perfectly inside of the canvas. And let's now take a look at exactly what is going on with the audio for these clips. I'm simply going to click on audio. You'll see I'll have some waveforms that are drawn. Now, as you can see from these clips here, there is only some reference audio really on, looks like on 3 of the clips. Doesn't even look like there's anything on this 3rd clip in here. So you can see that we are going to need to get in and to actually sync up some audio here. So how are we going to go about doing this? Well, there's a couple ways that we can do this. We can do this the automatic way, and we can do this the manual way. Now let's do this the automatic way first. So what we're going to do is we're going to come into the construct module again. We're going to head back to the media browser. Now here's where things really start to get cool. Now you've heard me say before, Scratch is the king of metadata. Now you're going to see really where that comes into play in just a second, because as I told you before, I'm missing some metadata information here. Now I could get in and enter this information manually. How would I go about doing that? Well, for example, in the first clip, you'll see I have scene and take, and I can actually come back to the edit module in this first clip, and I can actually get the scene 210 and take number 2 from the clapboard, and I can actually enter that information manually. However, that information might already be tagged in the metadata for the audio that we're going to sync up. Let's find out, shall we? What I'm going to do is I'm going to come back to the construct module, back to the media browser. Let's now select our 4 clips. We're going to come right down here, and we're going to load match audio. By timecode, the best match only, I'm going to tell it to find the audio. Now I'm going to send it right back to the folder that we were in before, which is our sync demo in the audio folder, and I'm going to say select. Now, you'll notice immediately the audio window, I'm not going to say comes alive, but it more or less comes alive because a lot of that information that we didn't have before, we do now, like scene, take. The audio timecode should match exactly, and then we also have the roll, the slip, and the number of audio files, as well as telling me that there is actually audio now attached to these files. Now, one thing I should also point out, just to keep in the back of your head, is that if you happen to have LTC audio or LTC timecode associated with these clips, you can actually check for LTC right here. Now, what I'm going to do is just say OK and just come back to the edit module for 1 second just to show you that not only was that metadata information brought into the media browser, but you can see that we actually have metadata information here now actually physically located on the audio channels of each one of the clips. Now, what I also want to do here is I'm just going to come back to the construct module and back to the media browser for 1 second here. What I'd like to do is to clear the audio. So let's clear the audio. We're going to come back and we're going to do this again in just a second. But what I want to do is I just want to talk about something else for just 1 second, which is the audio timecode value. Now, what the audio timecode value in our case is representing is the timecode of the clip. Okay, so you can see the video timecode of the clip 1020, 2320, audio timecode is going to match because the video and audio come from the same clip, so that's why both those values match. Now, here's where things get interesting. So this value is what Scratch is going to utilize to sync up external audio files to then sync the two together, the external audio file and that video/audio clip. Okay? Now, let's say hypothetically that Scratch was looking for a 10-hour time code. It thinks that the time code of the audio clip that it's looking for is 10 hours and 20 minutes. However, for some reason, the audio time code's not the same. Let's just say hypothetically it's a 12-hour time code. What you actually have the ability to do is you can come in and you can cross-reference the slate information, so the time code on the slate. You can actually come back to the construct window to the media browser and actually enter in a unique value for this to match what it says on the slate. So this way, instead of you having to go in and sync up all the clips manually, you can quickly go in and change the timecode values of what Scratch is going to be looking for. So this way, when you sync it up, Scratch will look for the proper timecode and not the timecode that's tagged to the video file. Now, what's also important to keep in mind is I've been showing this to you inside the media browser, but we can obviously also enter that information in our sidebar. When the metadata comes out, we can just punch in this information there as well. So this is now how you can really start to take things to the next level, especially in situations, like I said, where the video and the audio timecode match. You can get in and, utilizing the slate, re-enter that information in the audio timecode, so this way Scratch can sync those clips up for you automatically. So let's just go back here and we're just going to sync up the audio, and I want to just double check to see exactly what is going on with the sync. So you'll see everything is now good to go. I'm going to say OK, and I'm going to come back to the edit module. Now let's just take a look at our first clip here. Now before I do this, there's something that I do want to point out, and I'm just going to come up to our audio tool here. We are on the waveform. If I do hit play, you'll see that we do have some audio rolling through there. Now, if for some reason we don't hear the audio, because as you can see right now, I'm seeing some waveforms going, but I don't hear anything, and I know you don't hear anything either. So what the heck is going on? Something must be wrong. You know, I must have not brought the audio in correctly or something like that. Believe it or not, it's actually not that at all. I actually just don't have the audio monitor turned on, which is right here. So now if I come back and hit play,
I can't have it on. That sucks.
There we go. You can now hear the audio, no problem. Now what I want to do is just find that clapboard here. There we go, perfect. And what I want to do is just make sure that my frame is good to go, which it is. And I'm just going to play this. Okay, that one was almost impossible to tell. Okay, now what's important to keep in mind is that Scratch has gone through and done exactly what it needs to do. It's lined up those time codes perfectly. But you might run into situations where maybe the clapboard is really far off in the distance, even though, to be honest, it should be right up close to the camera, kind of like it is now. But if it's off in the distance and they snap it, it's going to take a few frames for the sound to get from where the clapboard is to where we are. So we might have to go in and make a couple minor adjustments. Now with this, because it wasn't really clapped very well, we're just going to go with an eye check here.
Maybe you could pretend she put it on.
Talk to me, camera.
That's pretty close. And we'll just take a quick look to see if there's another clap in board in here. No, there isn't. So that's fine. Let's go on to the next shot here. Perfect. So I'm just going to hit play. Now, that right there, you can see, because again, he's far off.
160, take one, common mark.
You can see that that clap actually comes late. So let's get in, let's take a look at what's going on. Now, something that I do want to point out right off the bat in the waveform window is you'll notice these dotted red lines. Those dotted red lines actually represent each one of the frames. Okay? Now, because we are dealing with video, unfortunately, we can only go frame by frame. Now, I don't want to click and drag anywhere in this window, and you'll see why in just a second. Let's track down where that clapboard actually snaps.
Common mark.
Okay, now what I want to do is first of all turn on scrubbing, because as you'll notice I don't have any scrubbing sounds, which is actually found in the output module. I'm just going to hit scrub. There we go. There we go. There's the sound right there. So if I come back to the waveform, you'll see there it is right there. Now there's a couple ways that we can sync this up. The easiest way to sync this up is to actually come right back to where that clapboard hits, which is right there. And I can actually, inside of the waveform window, now I'm just going to do this pretty broadly, as I can just drag. Now if you take a look down at my timeline, you'll actually see the audio shifting as I move it. And you'll also see right here, it's actually telling me how many frames and how many milliseconds this shot is actually being slipped. Now I'm just going to undo that again because I don't want to go too crazy. I'm going to bring that clapboard back to right there. So let's come back now.
160, take one, comment mark.
Perfect. Okay, now this is how we would go through, and then we would check each one of the sync on each one of the clips. Now, something else that I do want to point out. Let's come back here for 1 second. I think I'm actually going to jump back to this clip here, only because it was nice and close up. There we go, perfect. What is this? This is, scene 210, take 2. Well, if I head back to my metadata here, you'll now see that metadata being populated. I can now go through and verify that everything is correct. There's scene 210, take 2. Circle take. Now, something else that's also important to keep in mind is that I've actually attached that audio to the clip itself. But if you take a look over here, we actually also have the ability to add audio directly to the timeline, which is also very cool as well. Okay, so we could go through, sync up all those clips basically one at a time, and we'd be all set to go. Now, what I want to do now is I want to come back and show you how we would manually sync a clip up. If, for example, we had, 2 clips, one had a 0-hour time code, maybe we had no slate, but somebody got out there with their hands, slapped their hands together, and then they sunk shots up like that. So let's do that here. What I'm going to do is just head back to the media browser. I'm just going to remove all of my audio here. Let's go clear audio, and the shot that I want to get in here and work with is the A shot. Okay, so it's this shot right here, and I'm just going to say okay, and I'm going to come back to the edit module, and keep in mind I did remove that audio from inside the media browser. You could always do it from right here as well. So let's come down to this second shot here. Now, as you can see, we're missing the proper audio channels because I did remove them from this file, so let's add them right here from within the edit module. Let's head back to our Scratch Dailies, to our audio sync folder, to audio. It's the first clip that we're going to be selecting, and I am going to say open. You'll see as soon as I do that, everything immediately opens and is all good to go. Now, what we would do in a situation where this audio was completely out of sync and we wanted to get it and sync things up properly is we're going to head to the audio tool. Now, as much as I love metadata inside of Scratch and just, what a powerhouse tool it is, I also love tooltips. And I know that sounds kind of funny. Kev, why would you love tooltips so much? Well, in a lot of cases, the tooltips inside of Scratch are almost like instruction manuals unto themselves. And let me show you what I mean by that. So we're going to get our clapboard guy here roughly where we're going to need him to be. I'm going to zoom all the way in, holding Option and using the mouse wheel to zoom in, and then the space bar to pan everything over. And I'm just going to stick the audio window right here. So let's move down roughly to the point where he hits that down. Perfect, right there. Okay. Right there, perfect. Now, if I hover over where it says Set Marker, you'll see this sets the audio marker. Once you set, you can go to the video position of the clapper and hit sync. So what this is telling me is that I need to line things up with the actual clap sound. So let's do that. I'm going to come down here. There's the clap sound right there. I can see it. Now, we have to get it roughly close because this is actually happening mid-frame, as you can see. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set a marker right there. Now you'll notice that it turns green to say that the marker's set. Let's now move back to where the actual clapboard comes down, which is right here. That first frame of not seeing anything in between the stick that's coming down and the actual board itself. And all I'm going to do now at this point is simply hit sync. And as soon as I do, you see that everything now shifts. I can now come back and watch this clapboard.
160, take one, comment mark.
Perfect. So you can see now, this is how we can now get in and manually sync clips as opposed to doing it automatically. Now, in the ideal world, automatic is the way you want to do it. But keep in mind, even though doing it automatically, there might still be issues that we're running into on the set. Again, clapboard could be too far away. Maybe the audio engineer was having problems and things were not recorded, correctly frame accurate with the time code. Scratch, remember, is going to go dead on with that time code. So you're going to need to get in and verify that everything is good to go before you send out audio that is out of sync. So, as we've seen in Scratch, 3 different ways to do audio sync. The first one, and the most ideal one, is automatically. Second, you can get in and simply utilize the waveform tool to get in and drag the audio wherever you need it to be based on where that clapboard comes down and lands. The third way to do it is again manually, but this time you're going to be looking for the sound of the clapboard to mark as your in point. Then you'll go back and find visually where that clapboard happens, hit sync, and you'll be all set to go. All right, now as always, if you have any questions, you have any comments, or ideas for upcoming lessons or courses, I want you to head on over and post them in our forums at lowpost.com. kevinpmcauliffe.com/forums. And if you have any questions for me, you can always send them to kevinpmcauliffe@gmail.com.